Hello and welcome to Kentucky. My name is Justin. I'm the owner of Team 53 and I partner with Coach Dave Academy and Impel Motorsports to bring you this week's Learn to Drive video for C-Fix trucks at Kentucky as part of iRacing's 2025 Season 3 Week 7 official series. If you guys can, make sure you like and subscribe. It does a ton to help out my channel. I'm a very small-time short track racer here in Wisconsin. I have a late model parked in my driveway. My daughter Sydney's been racing go-karts all summer long at Badger Kart Club and Road America. She's been having a blast, and so anything you can do to help us bring more eyes to the channel, more sponsorship money, more people headed over to the Team 53 Discord, anything that you can do at all does a ton to help us out as a small-time racer. I will say this week at Kentucky is going to be a fun week for you guys. It reminds me a ton of Las Vegas in terms of how to drive it and kind of where you're at. So let's dive in here. First things first, we'll go into the garage. Fixed setup race. We can only change three things. I dropped it to a 10-to-1 steering ratio, +4 offset, and a 59% brake bias. Your brake bias really isn't going to matter a ton here. The biggest thing would be for coming in for pit stops. That'd really be about the only thing that you'd really need to worry about brake bias for. Maybe on an initial start if you're trailing behind somebody, that type of thing. But should be a pretty easy week for you in terms of that. So let's head out for qualifying. We're going to head out. Lap 1's going to be my fast lap, but I'll talk about my friends at Impel Motorsports. They've got a great deal with us. If you join the Team 53 Discord, you can get free shipping on next level sim rigs through Impel Motorsports. There's a detail in our announcements tab on how to do that. So head over there. They also sell Moza products as well as real race car stuff. So impelmotorsports.com. Again, free shipping on next level stuff through the Impel Motorsports Discord. So we're going to get up to speed here. You see I'm going high in 3 and 4, just getting a huge run. And then I'm going to cut this truck down. And we're actually going to cut it right here about at this Geico area. And we're going to go all the way down to this apron and run right down here on the bottom. So you see us cut it. We're right down there on the bottom from the far chase cam. You see we're right on that seam there. Running right there. We'll bring it up. I like to swing the truck all the way out for this corner. I feel like I scrub less speed if I'm out wider. Some guys like to hold it down a little bit tighter. You just kind of have to test that out for yourself. But I go nice and wide. We bring it in full flat out, no lift um, for this lap. Bring it all the way down to the bottom. You can see here from the far chase, right side's right on this seam. A ton of grip right on that little strip there. So use that right sides on that. Let it float up here on corner exit. We're going to get nice and tight up against the wall. You can see there from the rear chase, there's this seam right here along the wall, and we're going to be nice and tight on that. So all the way down the backstretch like that. And now as we get closer to the corner, I'm starting to think about what I need to do for this corner. Now, unlike turn 1, I was not able to make this corner going flat out. So I had to lift. And finding where that lift point was and how much that lift point was and really telling my brain that it's okay to get my foot back on the throttle at this point, that was the most difficult part for me. So as we go around this corner, I'm flat out down the backstretch. We come up on the Toyota billboard or the Toyota sign here on the wall. And then we start to turn in right before the Z-Max. Now we bring it in, and my goal is not necessarily going to be all the way down there on the bottom, but I'm going to try and keep it up a little bit. And what I found was that if I tried to get all the way down to the yellow, I lost a ton of momentum. But if I didn't really necessarily worry about it and kind of straddled this seam here, it really would help me out. So I straddle that seam, and you can see we're back in throttle. So just off maybe 50% throttle from about turn in until we get back to this seam. Once we hit this seam, that's where we'll start to throttle up. And then we'll just drive nice and hard up off the corner. Let it swing out wide. And then just like we did on the lap before, I'm going to shoot to get my truck back down here to the bottom. And that's what we did. 444 lap. So we'll go inside the car, presented by my friends at Overdrive Racing Oils and Lubricants. They're an independent AMSOIL dealer. If you do your own oil, great place to go to get oil. I put it in my own personal car, and I saw about a 2 mile per gallon increase. So use the link in the description below. They'll get you hooked up with everything you need. So also, it helps keep our content on this channel free. So let's head out, and we'll show you guys a lap inside the truck. And there you go. Race laps here at Kentucky are pretty much going to look the same. Your lift points and your throttle points are going to be a little bit later. You got to remember you have, I think it's a 40 lap race here in C fixed, and you really want to make these tires last, particularly if you get a green flag run. So we got to be easy on them. Some of the tools that some guys will use is they'll go high in the corners, they'll do all of that stuff. Um, I can tell you, having worked with Coke drivers in the past, that Coke drivers, everyone will tell you that you can save tires running the bottom. It's all about when you're on throttle and how you're using it. For me, it's easier to run the bottom and save about 2/10, especially early in the run per corner. And then what I'll do is as the lap times start to drop off or as I'm in traffic, I'll move around. So really when you're thinking about frame of mind for Kentucky, think about Kentucky like you would Las Vegas. How you would run Las Vegas in a C-fixed race is going to be very similar to how you run Kentucky. They're both the same shape. They're both pretty decently banked in the corners. The only real difference is going to be grip. And you really have to watch and see where the track rubbers in. If that second lane starts to rubber in, you can look at going to the outside lanes. If the outside lanes don't really rubber in, you're going to be stuck down on the bottom. And then it's all important that you keep that left front in clean air. That's what's going to make it so that if you get aero tight, it's because that left front is blocked. If you can keep air on that left front, you're going to be good. And that's the secret to aero racing in iRacing, is keeping that left front clear. So I'll show you guys kind of what I mean here. We ran some laps here down on the bottom. And the truck's just kind of cruising along. You saw in race trim, right? There's a lift there in one. In Q trim, we're flat out. So already there's a little bit of a difference that I just kind of gave it a little bit of hesitation, right? Let that car breathe, let it lift and just kind of coast through the corners. Same thing in 3 and 4, much bigger lift. In qualifying trim, we're back on right here. Here in race trim, we're still off. We get back on, we drive up the track. I'm going to still cut the dog leg here as much as I can, the tri-oval, dog leg, whatever you want to call it there. But it's kind of that same general philosophy. Run the bottom, we're lifting a lot longer. We're not lifting at all in race trim in one. In race trim we're lifting, sorry, in qual trim we're not. Same thing 3 and 4, we're lifting a lot longer, almost completely out, and then we get back in. So it's just all about being patient, finding where guys aren't, and using that land. So now here I'm starting to think, well, what other lines can I run? Can I run a little bit harder into this corner? I gave it a little bit more throttle because we're getting later in. Truck got a little loose there in center, so I had to let it step out. Just all of these little things of trying different things as I'm kind of building up these runs and figuring stuff here. A little bit earlier throttle point that time. But you can hear the engine just doesn't quite sound like it's as good as what it needs to be. And then here I'm going to go kind of keep running. And in 3 and 4, I think this is the lap that I decide I'm going to try something different. Yep, so now we're going to try running the high line here in 3 and 4. And yeah, it was easier, but what I found was my steering wheel was turned a lot more, so I felt like I was using a lot more tire. But it might be the key to run the bottom in 1 and 2, top in 3 and 4. That'll be something you guys will just have to test out. And like I've told you guys before in these videos, run some practice laps and run 10 laps on the bottom and check your tires. Run 10 laps on the top, check your tires. Check your 10 lap average speed and just really kind of know where you're at on the track, what your fastest laps are and where you need to go and how the truck is going to react. And that's going to serve you so much better in these fixed races than if you just go in and you only know how to drive the bottom because all you've done is qualify practice. So passing zones here, I mean, you guys kind of know it. Pretty much anywhere that you can get a run, you just want to build that run up and be ready to make the pass when it comes available. But other than that, it should be a fun week at Kentucky. Looking forward to it for you guys. Best of luck, and we will see you guys in the next video.